Can you please remain standing for prayers? I seem to have mislaid the Mayor's chaplain, so very careless of me. Councillor Jackson, could you take prayers, please?
Let's pray. Oh God, our Father, we pray that we may feel your presence here tonight as we meet on this very important day when we consider the budget for the coming year. Oh Lord, we pray that we will do the best for the residents of this town, for those that visit us, that we may be on the side of those who need the help that we can give, and that we may give it in the right way. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. And those who are able, I invite you to share in the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Please be seated. Oh, thank you. Right, can I just warn you, councillors, most of you know I had an eye operation. I have very, very blurred vision. Now, I'm not saying if you want to speak and attract my attention, stand on your seat and wave your arms about, but it would be advisable. No, Mark will keep an eye on me, I'm sure. Right. Are there any official apologies for absence? No? Declarations of interest. I know we have quite a few this evening. Councillor Mrs Wright.
I wish to declare prejudicial interest on item 6.
Thank you. Is that you, Adrian, there? Yes. you mock the afflicted, you know, you really do.
Interest in agenda item 6.
Thank you. Councillor Debbie Coleman.
Same item.
Thank you. Councillor Lynn Williams.
A personal interest as a member of director of Blackpool Entertainment Company.
Councillor Critchley. Councillor Benson.
Item 6, Mr Mayor, is Blackpool Transport and
You'll have to bear with me.
disclosable pecuniary interest in that item, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Right. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Councillor. All right, yes. Thank you. Councillor Galley.
I've got 2 interests, Madam Mayor. Non-executive director at Blackpool Transport, so it's a prejudicial one, and a personal interest in Blackpool Entertainment Company Limited.
Thank you. Councillor Stansfield.
It's a prejudicial interest in item 6 as a board member of Blackpool Coastal Housing.
Thank you. Any others? Oh yes, Councillor Elms.
Prejudicial interest in Blackpool Transport, item 6.
Thank you. Councillor Jackson.
Pecuniary, I can't say the word, pecuniary interest in as a member of the Blackpool Entertainment Company.
Thank you. Anybody else? Councillor Gary Coleman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Prejudicial interest, Blackpool Transport, item 6, and personal, being a director of Blackpool Entertainment Company, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Are there any further? Oh yes, there are. Councillor Councillor Luke Taylor. We are mocking me.
Thank you. Prejudicial interest in item 6, director of Blackpool Coastal Housing.
Thank you. Oh, sorry, Councillor Cox.
Personal interest, item 6, Blackpool Entertainment Company. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I think also the Blackpool Coastal Housing Directors have got a personal interest in the proposed rent review, item 5 as well.
Oh, of course, yes.
So if you can take the same declarations, but as a personal interest for those.
So they don't have to go out for that. Right. That's taken half the night, but that's the declarations of interest. Thank you. Is there going to be anybody left for that first part of you? I'll listen to you, Councillor Blackburn, for the first time. Item 2, minutes of the last meeting on the 25th of January 2017, pages 1 to 6. Is everybody happy I sign them as a true and correct record? Thank you. Item 3, capital programme, pages 7 to 16. Do we have a proposer? Councillor Blackburn?
Propose that, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Seconder?
Formally second, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody wish to speak on it? No? Well, now keep this up all night and we've cracked it. You don't want to write a reply, I presume, Councillor Blackburn? No, if we go to the vote, all those in favour? Against? Thank you. It's carried. Item 4, Treasury Management Strategy 2017-18, pages 17 to 26. Councillor Blackburn, are you proposing?
Yeah, proposed.
Seconder, please.
Formally second, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Any speakers on this? Again, I presume you don't want the right to reply, Councillor Blackburn. All those in favour, please show. All those against, please show. That's carried. Thank you. And item 5, proposed rent review 2017-18, pages 27 to 36. Councillor Wright.
I wish to propose the rent review.
Thank you. A seconder?
Formally second, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Anybody wish to speak on this? No, you don't want to right to reply, do you, Councillor Wright? No. Right, all those in favour, please show. All those against? Thank you, it's carried. Now we move to item 6, where obviously all those that have declared their prejudicial interest will need to leave the room for this first part, please. Did anybody leave a question? Mark, did anybody leave a question at all? No, right. We're a little empty. Right. I've been told there's no questions being left. You know, how they could ask questions on the other things. So it's over to you, Councillor Blackburn.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I am tempted to suggest that we all sneak out through that door and leave them outside. This item relates to only the proposed budget savings in relation to income from Blackpool Coastal Housing Limited and in relation to a slight reduction in bus route subsidies. So I move that part of the budget relating to savings as a result of the proposed reduced bus route subsidies in the sum of £63,000 outlined at recommendation 2B, Appendix 6C, and further income to be generated from Blackpool Coastal Housing Limited in the sum of £500,000 outlined at recommendation 2B and Appendix 6C.
Thank you, Councillor Blackburn. Anybody wish to speak on this? Oh, have we not? Oh, I'm sorry. I knew I was doing too well.
Formally second, Madam.
Thank you, Councillor Campbell. Anybody wish to speak on this? No. We'll move to the vote then. As you know, we now have to legally have a recorded vote.
Madam Mayor, recorded vote on the motion in the name of Councillor Blackburn. Councillor Blackburn?
Yes.
Councillor Kane?
Yes.
Councillor Mrs Maxine Callow?
No.
Councillor Peter Callow? No. Councillor Campbell?
Yes.
Councillor Clapham? No. Councillor Ian Coleman?
Yes.
Councillor Collett? Yes. Councillor Cox? No. Councillor Cross?
Yes.
Councillor Mrs Henderson? No. Councillor Hobson?
Yes.
Councillor Hunter?
Yes.
Councillor Jackson?
Yes.
Councillor Matthews?
Yes.
Councillor Maycock?
No.
Councillor Mitchell?
Yes.
Councillor Owen?
Yes.
Councillor Roberts?
No.
Councillor Robertson?
No.
Councillor Ryan?
Yes.
Councillor Scott?
No.
Councillor Smith?
Yes.
Councillor Stansfield? Oh, sorry. Not who. Councillor Ivan Taylor? Councillor Tony Williams?
No.
Councillor Madam Mayor, so.
Abstain.
Councillor Kirkin. Councillor Lynn Williams, sorry, I beg your pardon, Mr Mayor. And Councillor Kirkland. So it's too many absentees, I apologise.
You did very well there, Mark, considering you had to keep looking as you went down the list. I think they're having a party out there.
Madam Mayor, members have voted as follows: 17 for the motion, 10 against, 1 abstention.
Thank you. The motion is carried. Can somebody ask them to come back in now, please? Yeah. No, they sound like they're enjoying themselves. They can come back in. Right, councillors, thank you. We will continue with the leader's speech on the budget. But now that you're all back, can I just please remind you all, Councillor Blackburn and Councillor Williams, of course, can speak for an unlimited time. That isn't an offer. No. But any speakers, just to remind anybody new or who has forgotten, will still only have the 3 minutes as normal afterwards. Okay, over to you, Councillor Blackburn.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that the Council agree the proposed remaining recommendations outlined in Appendix 6C, bringing together the recommendations from the executive meetings on the 6th of February and the 20th of February 2017 into a summary document set out in accordance with the requirements of the Localism Act of 2011. Madam Mayor, it is 6 years ago since I delivered my first budget speech in this chamber. My one, and I trust my only, speech as Leader of the Opposition. In that speech, I highlighted some of the weaknesses and failings of what I trust will be the last Conservative budget in Blackpool. I described that day as one of the most significant days in the history of our town. I said that the decisions made in this chamber on that day would affect the lives of many people, especially the 627 members of our staff who were put out of work as a consequence of the last Conservative budget in this town. In addition to the 120 people who had already left the council that year, following the then Leader of the Council's assurance that he had single-handedly kept the number of compulsory redundancies below 30. I think we established that he'd misheard and meant 130. Especially the 1,000 library users who wouldn't be able to visit Mearside or Grange Park libraries as the Conservative group's budget would close them down. I commented on how they'd managed to invest £3 million in brilliance, which I described at the time as the rather odd collection of lights and sounds which plays away merrily to itself in the otherwise deserted town centre. I note with interest, Madam Mayor, that it is still there, still gently rusting away. We talked about the amazing wisdom and foresight that the Conservative administration had in continuing to plough well over £500,000 into that huge success that was Carnesky's ghost train. We talked about their frankly bizarre plans in the midst of a recession and an economic slowdown for a cut in the Council's enterprise and employment initiatives, which would save less than £100,000 but jeopardise huge amounts of investment and many jobs in the town. They cut the school improvement budget by nearly £1 million that night, colleagues. And yet still, once a year, when the GCSE results are published, they stand up and ask why. They made a cut in administrative support to social work and safeguarding staff. So instead of preventing child deaths and stopping sexual abuse, social workers had to spend their time photocopying. We were told that night that there was, in that beautifully crafted Thatcherite expression, simply no alternative. I was challenged to say what I and the Labour group would do differently were we sitting on this side of the chamber. So I did. I said that we would keep Grange Park Library open. And we did. And it's still there. I said we would have fewer senior managers and directors and pay them less money. And we did. The Conservative administration needed a cadre of 35 senior officers to produce that slash and burn budget that put over 600 ordinary working people out of a job. 35, Madam Mayor. We need only 9. We said that we would ban first-class travel for officers and councillors, and we did. I predicted that that day and that shambolic, out-of-control budget would mark the day that the people of Blackpool, young and old, rich and poor, businessmen, students, taxi drivers, ice cream vendors, shop workers, teachers, pensioners, office workers and street sweepers, that would be the day that all of these people said no to Blackpool Council and yes to a bright new future where the town was run by the people of Blackpool on behalf of the people of Blackpool. I wound up by saying that the workers of Blackpool and the voters of Blackpool would, a few months later, pass their judgment on the Conservative administration. And Madam Mayor, they did. Blackpool Labour was swept to power on a landslide only 3 months later. We were subsequently returned to office with an even bigger majority in 2015. To put that revival and resurgence into context, Madam Mayor, in the 2007 local elections, when the Conservatives came to power, 27,000 people in Blackpool cast a vote for a Labour candidate. 27,000. In 2015, that figure had risen to 47,000. In by-election after by-election, people have endorsed Blackpool Labour's consistent approach to managing the cuts which have decimated local government in other parts of the United Kingdom. Madam Mayor, the Conservative government has cut over £130 million from Blackpool Council since 2010. The cumulative impact of this is that the people of Blackpool have been starved of over £450 million in the last 7 years. And yet, our Sure Start centres remain open. Our libraries remain open. Our leisure centres remain open. Our swimming pools remain open. And our public parks remain open. On top of that, we managed to achieve a freeze in council tax for the first 4 years of our administration. We set out today, Madam Mayor, an ambitious programme of development and investment which will set the town on a steady financial course for the next decade. Our medium-term financial strategy demonstrates that we have weathered the worst of this storm. Future budgets will be much less vicious, and by 2019-20, after 2 full terms of a Blackpool Labour Council, we will be back in the steady financial state that we left behind in 2007. In 2007, Madam Mayor, that is, of course, before the Conservatives in both Blackpool and Westminster decided to treat Blackpool like their own disastrous ghost train, crashing and thrashing around in the dark, making a lot of noise, but with incredibly limited vision, whilst terrifying all around them. I shall, Madam Mayor, save my further thoughts for the winding up speech, because obviously we know what Councillor Williams is going to say, because he says the same thing every year. He will bring no amendments. He will bring no alternative proposals. He will attack us for taking care of looked after children. He will say that instead of sending them to appropriate therapeutic placements outside of the borough, where their needs can be met with a view to reuniting them with their families, he will say that we should be taking a trip back in time and building cavernous general needs children's homes here, allowing for no separation between victims and perpetrators, no freedom from the pernicious influences which frequently cause children to be taken into care in the first place. He will attack us for working together with the other 14 local councils in Lancashire. And indeed, Madam Mayor, an unholy alliance of a small group of Conservatives in Blackpool, Wyre and Fylde, supported enthusiastically by a couple of Tory MPs who are, in my view, deliberately misunderstanding and misinterpreting the situation. Yes, it might end our hopes of forming a formal combined authority. It will also end our hopes of gaining control over the housing benefit budget, a once-in-a-generation opportunity to deal with bad landlords and reinvigorate our housing market. It may end our hopes of accessing more than £900 million of additional government funding across Lancashire. I want briefly, Madam Mayor, to pay tribute to the 14 leaders of Lancashire who have engaged in this process so far, especially to the Conservative leader of Fylde Council, Councillor Sue Fazakerley, and the Conservative leader of Ribble Valley Borough Council, Councillor Stuart Hurst, who, along with my deputy, Councillor Alistair Bradley, have worked incredibly hard on this project for the past 2 years. We will continue, Madam Mayor, to work together, come what may, with or without a formal combined authority. And we will do that across political parties and geographical and administrative boundaries, because we have a vision for the future which offers greater efficiency and efficacy in terms of delivering services to the public. The MP for Fylde, the leader of Wyre Council, and Councillor Williams can continue to sit and sulk in splendid isolation. But when the government comes knocking to say that because we couldn't agree on a combined authority, they are going to force us into a City of the Fylde unitary authority, they will have a long time to reflect on the wisdom of their actions, because that is the outcome which nobody wants. But unfortunately, sometimes, if people act like children, they are treated like children. I will work to ensure this doesn't happen, Madam Mayor, But I need to send out a very clear warning to those who think that they can play petty party politics with the lives and futures of everyone in Lancashire. And that message is that we won't allow it. Working together is the future, and I will continue to strive towards that goal for as long as I am in my job. Finally, Madam Mayor, Councillor Williams will accuse us of profligacy. He will say that he doesn't think we have the capacity to operate our highly ambitious £100 million business loan fund, which will be the single biggest economic driver this town has seen for a decade. He is wrong on this, Madam Mayor, as he is on so much else. But I shall answer his critique once he's sat down, just in case he comes up with anything that I haven't already thought of. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Blackburn. Do we have a seconder, please?
Formally second, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Campbell. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Before I start the speech, I'd just like to respond to one item of Councillor Blackburn's speech in regard to the combined authority. There are more than 3 Conservative authorities who are concerned about this arrangement, Madam Mayor, and no more so than involvement of the leader himself. There has always been doubts about some of this throughout Lancashire, so it's not just wire-filed and myself preventing this combined authority. Few others are now going to follow suit, I can agree with you. Madam Mayor, I think we all know that Einstein had many theories, but one of his lesser-known theories is the theory of insanity. And yes, it actually exists. Einstein's theory of insanity is the same group of people doing the same thing over and over again, but expecting different results. Sound familiar? One of the reasons we learn about history in schools is so that we don't repeat the mistakes from our pasts. Of course, we must know and understand how and why we made these mistakes to avoid making the same ones in the future. Budget failures are not just missed targets. Failed projects are overspending. A bad budget can also be defined by underspending and incorrect fund allocation to non-essential projects, which are designated incorrect forecasts from a central pot. In other words, the basic ability to get it right. However, I realise and I understand how difficult it is to both prepare, deliver and manage any budget in such a difficult, inherited national economic state. And that's why we have to go back to our school and our history lessons to remember and learn from the mistakes we made previously. But that's something this council is unable to do or are blind to their own failings. You cannot continue to blame every financial challenge on someone else's fault when you yourselves are guilty of wasting so much of Blackpool residents' money on managed projects and sheer follies, or to continue to borrow money on wild and unimaginative schemes that are single-minded and contribute very little to the town's social and deprived state, something that was never mentioned in Councillor Blackburn's speech. Millions could have been saved with stronger management and better decisions. And whilst these vast sums would not have prevented all the job losses, Madam Mayor, they could have helped. They could have helped to cut services or the cuts to services and rising social care costs. They could have made things a lot easier. Our record of collecting debts is also poor. And the fact we have to write off over £500,000 a year in unpaid debts is testament that we either have to rethink our methods or invest more in this area to get more back. That's one item that the leader didn't expect me to bring up. The other items, I'm afraid, Councillor Blackburn, I doubt if I'm going to mention. Nothing fails like success, Madam Mayor. And when a weak leader of an organisation thinks they know it all and become blind to changing times, they put the organisation they lead in great danger. The irony is, they don't even know it. A weak leader can't accept criticism. They don't take well to correction. They pout, get angry. Perhaps they may even seek or threaten revenge. A weak leader is a consummate fault finder. It's always someone else's fault. It's the economy, it's the culture, it's the team, it's everyone else. Currently, there are at least 7 new hotels being developed in Blackpool, and the council will have a financial interest in at least 4 of these new buildings. I think the phrase "all your eggs in one basket" has never been so applicable. Not only is the council actually competing against itself, it's borrowing the money to do so on the unconfirmed and very dubious speculation that Blackpool is suddenly going to be awash with thousands of new staying visitors all year round, Madam Mayor. We already have a very high debt level that is currently costing £5 million a year in interest only to repay. That's almost £70 per person, per adult in Blackpool in 2 years. £9.9 million just in interest rates being paid back at the moment. Are we going to borrow another 130 million more? That could see our interest rate payment only, without capital payment back, rise to almost £8 million a year. That's a lot of money. It is. It's a lot of money. Where's the council imagination? Where are the private sector partnerships? Where are the new attractions and amenities? And the retail that's going to bring all these new hordes of visitors to the town all year round and stay in these hotels? The government business rate deal, together with our 4-year agreement, is a huge benefit to this town, and we should be attracting businesses of all types from all over the UK, but where are they? This council's plans are attracting no significant new private sector investment. Their plan is to continue to borrow enough money to get completely out of debt. Back to Professor Einstein's observations. Last year, Madam Mayor, I spoke about strong leadership, and of course that received the usual criticism and sarcastic remarks from the leader. That follows every critique he believes is aimed at himself. My comments are not from any particular book or training session or self-improvement manual. Most are from captains of industry, successful political leaders and statesmen. I take no credit for them to be mine or even original, but they are trusted and true benchmark of what makes strong and weak leadership. And anyone not recognising or accepting these measures must surely fall into the latter. This year I'm going to talk briefly about weak leadership. Weak leaders will habitually demean others as a way of trying to make themselves look better. They keep people under their own personal control by labelling others with the faults of the organisation. In fact, according to a weak leader, you probably couldn't do it without them. Madam Mayor, the challenge of leadership is to be strong, but not rude. Be kind, but not weak. Be bold, but not bully. Be thoughtful, but not lazy. Be humble, but not timid. Be proud, but not arrogant. Have humour, but without cruelty. I'm sure that this budget is well intended, Madam Mayor, but the road to hell is full of good intentions. It's pointless dissecting a budget that will never be delivered or achieved as long as this council is in power. Nor is it welcome for their contemporaries or the public to offer suggestions or advice on changes when this council thinks they already know better than anyone else. They most certainly displayed that when I offered the advice from the chief executive of one of the large hotel chains in the UK, when his figures and his industry knowledge proved the proposed new hotel on Talbot Road would not be economically viable. This person is one of the most experienced hotel operators in Europe, yet this council dismissed his advice out of hand as they knew better. How can anyone support a budget devised by a self-serving council that has almost no private sector business experience whatsoever? No long-term strategy, an uncertain future built on no inward investment, an ability to create real income, a failure to manage its debts that has created a deprived, dirty town with drugs and alcohol abuse and rising crime. Bad landlords, the highest number of looked-after children in care in the UK. It's the truth. It's the truth. And in reality, actual fall in visitor numbers. Anyone with a modicum of sense will realise the sad truth that if we carry on down this path, we are heading for ruin. My love for this town is unfailing, Madam Mayor, and its descent into the disgraceful mess it's become is worse than the same town we inherited in 2007 when we came into power. Our promise was to clean up the town, which we did, only for it once again to become an embarrassment under this Labour Council. No, Madam Mayor, my heart and my head refuses to support any budget or business plan presented by this Council, which is doomed for failure under their management. And as I conclude, I will now await the usual inevitable personal insults from the leader. But we should all recognise weak leaders will habitually demean others as a way of trying to make themselves look better. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Does anybody else wish to speak on this matter? Councillor Peter Callow. Then you two, yes.
I didn't actually come here to speak this evening, but I've listened to all that drivel from the other side, and I do have to say something. If you switch on your televisions, what do you hear about property values? Night after night after night. It's embarrassing for people like me who were born and brought up in this town. Whilst property values up and down the land are increasing, property values in Blackpool have reached rock bottom. Not my view at all. They have, and you know it, because you caused it. This is what it's all about. Labour's policies. The values of properties in Blackpool are always quoted. They say things like Merthyr Tydfil, followed by Blackpool, rock bottom. Aren't you embarrassed? I am. You should be as well. You've had a go at me for what happened years ago. Well, I'm telling you, this is what's happening now, due to you. So get your finger out and do something about it and stop waffling.
Councillor Galley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to follow up on something that Councillor Williams said and link it to something that Councillor Blackburn said in the speech. And it's about the subject of business rates. And for once, I finally see that Blackpool has a competitive advantage in the non-tourist industry in terms of the diversification of our economy. And linking that back to something that Councillor Blackburn said, I think we have got a really good advantage when we look at the Business Loans Fund and what we can actually do with that to connect that with this new competitive advantage that we have. We know that business rates are going up in a lot of places which have operations like McVitie's and so on, where their business rates are going to go up considerably. And what I would like to see the leader do with the Business Loans Fund, not all of it obviously, to keep it to its core purpose, but some of it, is to actually create two things. One would be a recruitment of a commercial business developer who could go out to those sorts of firms and actually bring those firms to Blackpool on the basis that we have a similar skill base in food manufacturing and link that to the business rates, not just in the enterprise zone, but in our other areas as well of Blackpool. And linking that into it as well, we should also recruit someone in terms of marketing those business rates. There was an article again in The Guardian today, and it linked to all the places where they're going up, and there's this tiny little bit in there, Madam Mayor, about Blackpool. But we then need to do something with that marketing and actually really project that competitive advantage that our business rates are this level and that those firms need to be coming here. So that's how I would like to see in terms of the tweaks that we make to the business loans fund. Wouldn't cost a great deal of money, but would have some big benefits in terms of the competitive advantage. Linking that further to Brexit, we're about to see Britain probably move from a consumer-based economy, Madam Mayor, to a production-based one. And just this week there's been an announcement that food and drink exports to China have gone up by 50%, to the US by 12%. So we don't just have the benefits of them coming here based on their business rates, but we have the skill base in terms of food manufacturing that we can then actually project that further around the world as well. So I'd really like to see the Business Loans Fund amended slightly or tweaked to encourage the recruitment of commercial developers, somebody who's been in the world of those types of industries, who's got the network that they can tap into and sell our business rates and sell that competitive advantage. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Galley. Councillor Maxine Callow.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Like Peter Callow, I wasn't going to speak this evening, but I was saddened by the leader's tone and some of his comments that he made in his speech. You've made many mistakes since you came to power. A political assistant at a total cost of £44,000 a year who has now been sacked. What, was this a good idea or not?
Oh, point of order, Madam Mayor. That is very important. The political assistant has not been sacked.
Thank you.
Well, they're no longer with us, Mr. Mayor. They're redundant or something, whatever way you want to phrase it. You produced a car park on Talbot Road for the staff to use at a cost of £150,000. And then we were paying rent at £30,000 a year and nobody was using the car park year in, year out. You opened a gymnasium and opened the doors of the gymnasium from 9 o'clock in the morning till 5 o'clock at night, 5 days a week. You lost £90,000 on that, and we were told, well, it was a good experiment because it proved that a gym there could be quite popular. Well, actually, yes, the privately run one is a great success. And then you're talking about having a tramway up Talbot Road that most of the people in Blackpool, now they've digested that, they just don't want it. You've criticised the previous administration, but we provided the comedy carpet. And I hate to have to say this against Councillor Blackburn, because I know he finds it either boring or funny, but we bought the Golden Mile, the Winter Gardens, the Tower, and we improved on the trams. And yet we say that we did nothing. And we had 4 of the best switch-ons ever. We had Robbie Williams, we had Tom Gear, we had Alan Carr, and we had Doctor Who. And then you talk about the Tories being wiped out. Well, can I remind you, in 2011, and I'm not bragging, but I got more votes than anybody in Blackpool. The leader of the previous administration got the second most votes. And when he took over that ward, it was actually Labour controlled. This council has had more restructures with officers and with their executives.
Councillor Callow, could you put your microphone on, please? Could you put your microphone? That's it. We can hear you better now.
Sorry?
Your microphone wasn't on.
Oh, sorry. I think you can hear me. This council has had more restructures than Leicester City Football Club. And just look where it's got them, because they're going down, you're going down. You've had more changes with your management and with your executive, and as I say, you're just going down and down like Leicester Football Club, because they have a change of team practically every week. So, Madam Mayor, I was saddened by what the leader said. I didn't like his tone. I thought I was expecting something better than a history lesson, which was inaccurate in most ways, and for you then to stand up and just brag about yourself. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Callow. Do we have anybody else wishing to speak on this? No? Councillor Blackburn, right to reply.
Right. Okay. I want to, first of all, Madam Mayor, I want to address three statements which are not true. Obviously, it was Councillor Williams that said them. Number one, visitor numbers are not falling. Number two, our record of collecting debts is not poor. We actually perform in the upper quartile of local authorities in this. And number three, we do not have a very high debt level. That is simply not true in relation to other local authorities with a similar budget. I'm going to speak to a number of my colleagues over the next few days to establish how it is possible to pout and be angry at the same time, because if I could do that, I'd be pretty chuffed. Councillor Callow talked about property values. I have absolutely no idea where any of that information comes from, what point he thinks he is making, how I or any of my colleagues could be held to be personally responsible for that. I have absolutely no idea what that was about. Councillor Galley, as the chair of the Audit Committee, you are the chair of the Audit Committee. I thought you were. As the chair of the Audit Committee, I will be happy to work with you on the development of the Business Loans Fund, as you seem to have some very good and positive ideas about building up Blackpool. And I think you'll be fairly pleased with the work that we've done so far, because it, by and large, is in line with the sort of things that you are talking about. We do have a sort of emerging strategy for how we're going to promote the Business Loans Fund, and for, you will see some PR, some comms work over the next week or so on the business rate stuff. The reason I haven't done anything yet is because the Prime Minister stood up during PMQs this week and was anxious to try and find a deal for rich southern Tory authorities. Now, as we know, they've done a deal with Surrey that they're having to pretend they haven't done now. I want to make sure that the business rate thing isn't going to change before we start telling the world how wonderful it is for us. The political assistant, I'm on to Councillor Mrs Callow's points now. I'm sorry if you were disappointed. You know that I would never wish to disappoint you. The political assistant was not a mistake. It was an extremely good appointment. Unfortunately, we can't afford it. The gym was not a mistake. It demonstrated the value of a gym in that area, but that it needed to be open longer hours. And we've now got private sector investment providing that gym, which we've just been told we haven't got any of. The car park on Devonshire Road was a mistake, and I've admitted that before, but I'll admit it. It was a mistake. I've admitted it before. I admit it again tonight. We made a right hash of that, right? And you're completely right. But the point, I also did not say that your administration didn't do anything. What I did, and Councillor Mrs Callow has been in this chamber for enough years to know that part of the art of politics is shining a light on the deficiencies and defects of your opponent and shining a light on the things that you do very well. I think there may be a slight misunderstanding there. I'm never going to stand up here and list all the things that you did brilliantly well while you were in power, not least because you do it so much better than me. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Blackman. We'll move to the vote now, which again has to be a recorded vote.
Madam Mayor, recorded vote on the motion in the name of Councillor Blackburn. Please could members indicate their answer with either yes, no or abstain. Councillor Benson? Yes. Councillor Blackburn?
Yes.
Councillor Kane? Yes. Councillor Mrs Maxine Callow?
No.
Councillor Peter Callow?
No.
Councillor Campbell?
Yes.
Councillor Clapham? No. Councillor Debbie Coleman?
Yes.
Councillor Gary Coleman?
Yes.
Councillor Ian Coleman?
Yes.
Councillor Collett?
Yes.
Councillor Cox?
No.
Councillor Critchley? Councillor Cross? Councillor Elms?
Yes.
Councillor Galley?
No.
Councillor Mrs Henderson?
No.
Councillor Hobson?
Yes.
Councillor Hunter?
Yes.
Councillor Hutton?
Yes.
Councillor Jackson?
Yes.
Councillor Kirkland?
Yes.
Councillor Matthews?
Yes.
Councillor Maycock?
No.
Councillor Mitchell?
Yes.
Councillor O'Hara?
Yes.
Councillor Owen?
Yes.
Councillor Roberts?
No.
Councillor Robertson?
No.
Councillor Ryan?
Yes.
Councillor Scott?
No.
Councillor Smith?
Yes.
Councillor Stansfield?
No.
Councillor Ivan Taylor?
Yeah.
Councillor Luke Taylor?
Yes.
Councillor Lynn Williams?
Yes.
Councillor Tony Williams.
No.
Councillor Mrs Wright.
Yes.
Madam Mayor.
Abstain. I think we're having a recount, Councillor Williams.
Madam Mayor, members have voted as follows: 26 for the motion, 12 against, 1 abstention.
Thank you, Lorraine. The motion is carried. And can I just add something that nobody has said this time, which surprised me, and that is our thanks to Steve Thompson and his staff for all the work they put in all year, but especially at budget time. Please thank all your staff, Steve.
Madam Mayor, I'm sure on behalf of Councillor Williams and I would apologise for that oversight. We had discussed it last night over the telephone, and I'm really sorry it slipped out of my speech and presumably Councillor Williams. But thank you very much to Steve and his team. And thank you for pointing out my glaring error, Madam Mayor. I'm forever indebted to you.
Delighted to do so, Councillor Blackburn. Thank you very much, councillors. I declare the meeting closed.